Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Another exciting show and definitely another exciting guest. I know what you're thinking. Who is this? That's not Yolanda sitting next to you, Andre. No, it's not. But it is. The new podcast sensation host, all the way from Denver, Colorado, gracing that seat that occupied by so many great show co-hosts. But we got her here, the one, the only, Miss Marion Rivera. What's up, baby girl?
Buenos días, ¿cómo está?
Sí. Yeah. See. I know a little bit of something here. So, congratulations! You're getting ready to launch a new podcast, premiering this fall. I know the name of the show. Don't tell me. No, you tell me because it's your show.
The name of the show is called Change the Narrative with Marion Rivera. It's a podcast designed to rise, reignite, give people a voice, refuel their purpose.
Mhm.
We'll talk about a little bit of everything. Every topic we'll hit it. We'll put information out there, fitness, mental health, you name it. But we're going to have fun with it too.
Why the need to do a podcast? I mean, you left the Air Force, which is a great career. You have 4 beautiful daughters, but that's a powerful name for a podcast. Change the narrative. Why the need for it?
I felt the need recently, being that I lost my job a couple of months ago. I always say that God never closes a door without opening another one. I felt that this was my purpose. I have a great support behind me, and behind that support, people were really like, you got to put yourself out there. You got something to talk about. You got the presence. You got the know-it-all. So here I am, sitting next to you on your couch now. And if somebody would have told me 2 months ago that I would have been here hosting not only with you but also having my own podcast, I would be like, you'd be crazy. There's no way.
What's been a challenge so far? You're in season 1. What has been the toughest part of creating your own podcast so far?
Well, with your help, because you've guided me and you're giving me all the advice all the way. It's a change. It's something big. It's something different. I've never exposed myself like this before. I've never just kind of like let it all out.
Right.
So, but I want to have fun with it. I think it's a great opportunity that presented itself to me, and
I'm
gonna roll with it.
Okay.
I'm gonna roll with it.
Now, let me tell you where we got to go today. I'm blessed with this guy. I love sports. Really not a baseball fan, but it's so funny. My son, Kane, his mother said he's going to be a baseball player.
Huh.
And I remember when she was pregnant with him, I said, no, he's going to play football. She said, Dre, he's going to be a baseball player. He actually was good. He's actually a good baseball player. He had, even at a young age, he had people looking at him. So it made me really go back and revisit something that I really wasn't that fond of, which means I won't sit there and watch baseball. If I did, I watch the Atlanta Braves.
I love baseball.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. Because you love all kinds of sports. But today on the show, we have a young man whose journey into baseball started at the age of 8 years old. He's been playing for quite some time, and you can still tell by the smile on his face, the passion in his tone of voice, that this is never going to walk away from him. But he also realized during this transformation that he had to change the narrative. Damn, give me your plug. He had to change the narrative.
Yeah, he is here to change the narrative.
Yeah, he decided, what do I do? Baseball. What happens next? So to tell his story, let's welcome to the Andre The Beast Crayton Show, the one, the only, Mr. Baseball. Long as I threw him a curve. Mr. Baseball himself, Mr. T. Arez, to the show. Welcome, big dog. What's going on?
What's going on? Thank you for having me on the show, The Beast Show. I love it. I love the name. And Marilyn, your show, I'm sure is going to be amazing if you have Andre on your side. I don't see anything but upside for your show and your life right now.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
T, you've been playing baseball since the age of 8 years old. Before we get into this beautiful journey, tell the viewers a little bit about who you are. Then I'm going to go in with the question and answers, and we're going to rock the house with your story.
So yeah, I've been playing baseball since I was a little kid. My dream was to make it to the major leagues, and that dream fell a little short throughout the years. You know, the competition gets a lot harder once you start moving up in the ranks, going from high school to college, then up to the minor leagues, and then trying to make it to the pros. So you learn a lot of things throughout that whole journey, and my story is that I've learned a lot from baseball, and I've took that into the business aspect of all of my businesses, because I've opened up. I think my wife was checking out how many businesses I've opened up in the past years, and I'm like at 10 or something like that. So I'm always looking for the next best thing. I'm always trying to build something, and I think baseball's helped me through that journey, and made me better.
You say you've been playing since the age of 8 years. The years of 8 years. You started at 8 years old. Did you come from a background of baseball players in your family? Did everybody play? All the guys play baseball?
So my background's Cuban. I was born in Miami, Florida. I'm an American. I would say American Cuban, and
Okay.
Cuba is known for baseball.
Right.
Everybody plays baseball. That's the sport of that island. Everybody loves it. So yeah, my dad played, and he brought it. I don't know. I just started liking it. I would watch every sport. You said, sports guy. Anything that has to do with sports, I'm with it. I watch football, basketball, hockey. You got the Florida Panthers winning. Watch that. So I'm a sports guy itself, and but baseball was just that one sport that I liked the best out of any sport. And I remember watching the World Series when I was a little kid. We had Willie Stargell with the Pittsburgh Pirates. There was all these old school guys coming up there and hitting home runs, and I don't know, I was little, but I just enjoyed it more than football for some reason, even though I loved football too. But um, I just my parents loved the game, but they didn't push me into it. I just started playing it, and I just decided I wanted to play. Maybe they did say, "Hey, Dad played," so maybe I wanted to do it, and maybe my subconscious mind was saying, "Hey, this is what you should do." But I was really good at it, so I went and played it just because I guess the background of all the Cubans and all the great players that have come out of that island.
You mentioned your dad that he played. Did he make it to the big leagues?
My dad in Cuba, he played a little bit. Um, so my dad, during the time that he was in Cuba, that was the time that Castro was taking
Yeah.
over Batista, and it was that whole revolution. So he basically had to leave that country, move to Mexico, then back to was able to come to Miami, but at that time, he got married, and he wasn't able to continue that dream of his to play because there was a war. So it's either you got to get with the war, get the hell, get the heck out of there. So they got out of Cuba. So he played, but not in the majors or anything. Or
What do you remember about that transformation coming from Cuba? And I remember that time frame. But now you're in Miami, which is at the time the melting pot for pretty much everybody. That was the melting pot. It was the new California at that time. But what was it like for you growing up during that era? Fitting in with American society, keeping your Cuban heritage at the same time, seeing what your family had to do from going to point A to point B, and still keeping focused on your own self. How difficult was that for you?
you know, it, looking back at that time, I remember I'm born in Miami. I'm born here in the United States, but I'm raised as a Cuban. I started only speaking Spanish. So even though I was here in the States, my first language was Spanish. And I remember having a kid in the backyard, and he was American, and we really couldn't we would communicate, but not I couldn't really speak to him because he only spoke English and I only spoke Spanish when I was little. So it was a challenge at that point because of the way I was brought up, because I was brought up as still a Cuban, but living in the States. But I did have some Puerto Rican family in front of my house, and they were more Americanized. So they would actually teach me a lot of the slang and a lot of the English words that made me, I guess, fit in with the American kids once I went to school. So it was a pretty, it was challenging.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What was some of the slang? What was the Puerto Rican slang they were teaching you?
Man, no, it wasn't even that it was Puerto Rican slang. It was that they were Puerto Ricans, but they were more Americanized. So
Okay.
they they're playing hopscotch. I had no idea what the heck that was, or ring around the rosy, and these things that in the Cuban society doesn't play any of those games. So they're
Right.
bringing me into like the American thing. So that's what they basically were doing. But they were here in the States, but they showed me the Puerto Rican side too. They showed me how they raised. They had I remember they had some chickens, and they would have their eggs. There were a family of like 6, so
Look,
they
she's
grew their
sweating over
own. They
there.
had their own chickens, and
Look, T, she's sweating. You know she's Puerto Rican.
I'm over here reliving my
oh
childhood.
really?
Too much.
Oh man, well, Puerto Ricans, man, you guys cook amazing, and it's all about. They're really close to the Cuban community. It's all about family first. So it was just eating that. What is
Mofongo,
that rice and beans that
mofongo,
you guys
mofongo.
know? No, let the
Arroz
Puerto
con
Rican
gandules.
say it. Let the
What
Puerto
is?
Rican talk. There you
Arroz
go, arroz con gandule.
gandula, right?
That
It's
that
yellow rice and pigeon peas.
It's what?
Yellow rice and pigeon peas.
yes.
What's pigeon peas? What's that? I never had that. Okay, I gotta venture out a little
Listen,
bit more.
she need she needs the bring that dish to you next time, because
Yeah.
that is the best rice and beans you're gonna taste for sure. And but that the way that they cook, the lady in front of the house, the mother of these kids that lived in front of our house, that lady could cook. I would not eat in my house. I would go over there to the house because that lady would cook amazing.
I
So
love
I
it.
was kind of like brought up Cuban, Puerto Rican, and American.
Oh my goodness. So now your dreams. Your foot is grounded in Miami. You said you got offers for to go to college. What were some of those offers, and how did that make you feel? Because you still had to practice your craft. You didn't give up on your dreams. So evidently, for colleges to look at you, you pretty much started to master. What were some of the schools that was interested in you?
So listen to the struggle here, so you could understand how where I came from. I was pretty much my junior year. I was third. I was at the third best hitter in Miami-Dade County. So I was crushing it. I was hitting really good. The My senior year, I pull my back, and so I'm playing basically with a messed up back, and I I got some offers, but nothing that I would entertain. Like I didn't get really big offers anywhere big. I basically walked on to a junior college up in Jacksonville,
Mm-hmm.
and just tried out to play in this team that I had no idea what I was, why I would even. I just got a bunch of tryouts to a lot of schools here in the States, one in Melbourne, Sarasota, and then Jacksonville I went to, and they were all smaller schools. And when I got up there, I played shortstop there were 6 people trying out for shortstop, and then there was about 8 people playing second base, and they were both all Americans that position on both of those sides. So I was
Wow.
like, you know what, I'm gonna go with the second baseman. So I basically went in, walked on, and I beat everybody out of their position, and I actually became the starter at that school, not just being a walk on. I didn't even have a
Wow.
scholarship to get there. And then
Congratulations on that.
yeah, so it's always been, I've been really talented, but sometimes I was overlooked because of my size. I weighed like 150 pounds soaking wet, 6 foot. They look at the body type and they're saying, oh, that kid is, too skinny or whatever. So I would
Mhm.
get overlooked, but I would show, once I was on the field, I would show them, hey, this skinny guy could play.
Right. Right.
So I went there on a walk on, and then once I walked on there, I got a scholarship the next year. The next year after that, I had the Tennessee Volunteers on
Wow.
me. I think Valdosta State. I had a bunch of people trying to recruit me, but at that point, what I did was I wanted to sit out a year and try to get bigger, faster, and stronger. So I didn't
Uh-huh.
take any of those offers. And then once I sat out that year, the next year I had a scholarship at Tampa University. So I played
Oh,
there a year. And then for my senior year, I transferred back to Miami. They needed a shortstop in St. Thomas University, and I got a scholarship there to play. And I was able, we made it to the College World Series, the first time that schools ever made it to the College World Series. So it was pretty cool how my journey was from one school to the other, and just trying out and starting from the bottom, and working my way to the top.
you made it to
Eh,
the College World Series. How did that change you going into the future? Because that's pretty big.
yeah. So when we were a really good team in St. Thomas. What happened was that when we went to the College World Series, that's when all the scouts are there, and
Right.
I played lights out, and I stole a lot of bases. So in college that year, I think I had it was, if I'm not mistaken, out of I think 65 attempts, I had like 59 stolen bases in the
Wow.
year, and I was really good stealing bases, and um, so the scouts saw me, and that's when I got picked up to go play in the minor leagues, which is what I told you. I played in independent ball, but just
Right.
making it to that World Series was incredible because you were able to play against the best of the best basically in the nation,
Right.
and with the top prospects. So it was incredible, an incredible experience, and something that you can never forget how hard and how difficult it is to get to that position.
Now you mentioned something that I didn't know, and I'm glad you brought it to my attention. There is a difference between the big leagues and I would think the independent league. I've never heard of it, but you mentioned some critical names that
Oh
played
yeah.
in this league. So let's get real. Even though you
Yep.
may not have made it to the big leagues, shit, you play with big time players. You,
Yeah.
you mentioned the Daryl Strawberries and
Yeah.
and all
Yeah.
these
Yeah. Well,
guys.
yeah.
Tell the
Yeah.
viewers a
Ricky
little bit
Henderson.
about the independent league because I never heard of it.
Yeah, so the independent league is basically a league that you they it's a league that is not affiliated with any of the major league teams, but you could go there and try to get picked up to one of the major league teams. They pay you a salary the same as if you were playing for one of the teams. There were teams throughout the whole, I guess it was in northeast of the country. So we had, what would happen is that, like I said, Dale Strawberry, the year before I got there, he had played in the league, and he got picked up. I think it was the Yankees that picked him up. Ricky Henderson had an injury. I think he played the year before too. Jose Canseco played there. I think his brother Ozzy played there. So it was a bunch of ex-major leaguers and that major leaguers that were going back up to the majors, and then a lot of rookie ball players and stuff. So it was stacked. You were up there, and you were playing against the best of the best of the best of that town. So if they were from um, Ohio, and a small little town in Ohio, they were the best in the whole state. And so your difference between of you and the guy next to you might be only 1%. And you're thinking, 1%? Dude, that 1% was the difference between me and, let's say, the other guy, the guy that might be the major leaguer. That's how close the competition is there. So it's a really interesting scenario to be in, especially going. Go ahead.
You
You have a
mentioned
question.
you mentioned the 1%, and I like that 1% because it's the same in bodybuilding. As a professional bodybuilder, I would tell somebody there's a big difference between being an amateur athlete versus a national level athlete and then a pro
Yeah.
athlete. When you get to that national and that pro, it's only that 1%.
Correct.
You lose to this. You took second place because of what? That 1%. And that 1% can make a difference. So let's say, for instance, because you mentioned this on your bio, you mentioned the 1%. I love that you say that, because I don't hear that with a lot of people. So that 1%, you're there in this league, and you're playing with these great players. Who were some of the players that you played against that you knew your 1% was just as good as theirs, and you should have been gotten? And this is a two-part question. Because you knew this, you were still somewhat overlooked. Give me some feedback on that.
So specifically, when you're up there, this is how it usually the majority of the time, this is what happens. You're up in the major leagues, and you have a guy that is ranked, let's say, number 5, in the world playing.
Right.
They put a lot of money in that guy. So if, let's say, if they put, for instance, you got Alex Rodriguez, number 1 pick overall in the whole draft. You have that guy in your league. Even though you might be better than him, you're not gonna overtake that guy's position, even though nobody would. But what I'm saying is that you might have a guy just as good as him, but if they're paying that guy $3 million to sign, and they paid the other guy, $1,000, they're gonna go with their investment of the $3 million. They're gonna make sure that guy. So you're basically, how I see it is that the minor leagues, you're training that 1% of them picking for you to train them to go to the next level. And then hopefully you get looked at between that time, and they say, "Man, this guy's pretty good. He's doing just what the same thing as the other guy is. Maybe we should pick him up." And there's some guy, I can't. So there's a catcher. I don't know I can't remember his name. He's a Cuban guy here from Hialeah that was a catcher in for the Yankees, and the guy was killing it. But he was, he was a draft pick that was, low, and he was older, whatever. And the guy made the roster for the Yankees, and it was big news, because you had that little guy actually, become one of the major league prospects, because he outshined everybody else, but he wasn't the big paid guy. So it's kind of like that thing that, you're basically there to train that big person that's on there. So if you have a shortstop that is the number 1 in the country, you're there to basically make him better. So you build that team for him to go to the next level, and then hopefully you're good enough to say, "Hey, I'm here, pick me." So that might happen, but again, your 1% is just as good as everybody else's. So it's like how do you stand out? Even like in business, how do you stand out? Everybody sells, let's say, mortgages. How do you stand out to that one guy? We sell the same product, we do the same thing. So it all is, you're trying to stand out some way, somehow, to make that difference. And for me, I was, not that I was unlucky, but
Right.
my mindset wasn't where it is today, which I wish I would have the mindset that I had today, because I would have continued on that journey. But instead, you let society tell you, "Oh, you're too old," or what are you going to do for the rest of your life? What's your future? I was with the girl at the time that I was with, and I decided, oh, let me work on my future instead of working on my dream.
Mm.
And that's the one thing I want to tell everybody, that you could do whatever you want, but don't let other people force you into into the reality that they want you to be in. I could have continued playing baseball. Maybe I wouldn't have made it or whatnot, but I think I started making excuses for myself to
Mm.
say, okay, let me quit. Instead of saying, you know what, I should be working even harder. I take Kobe Bryant into that, and saying Kobe Bryant would train, 6 times a day, while his competitors were doing 2 a days or three.
Mm.
So that I start looking at that. I'm like, man, I really, lost out. But I try to take that and say, you know what, I wouldn't be where I am today, or the person I am today, if those challenges would have not happened. So I don't have any regrets leaving, but I do think back and say, damn, I could have done better. And that's what I do now. I could do better at whatever I'm doing. Look at myself in the mirror and say, am I doing enough? Am I not? Then be accountable for that. So
But
that's one thing that I think is important. And and I know you've heard me talk about that,
yeah,
having an accountability partner and stuff. But just looking yourself in the mirror. And one guy that does that really good is David Goggins. I don't know if you know him. Um, yeah,
what did you
he
say?
is.
I love David Goggins. He is,
He-
I'm convinced he's not human. He is a beast. He's a machine. He is a
yes,
machine. And I have never seen somebody with so much determination, and just what a fire is lit under his ass, honestly,
yeah,
because this man is relentless, and he's on a whole nother
yeah,
level.
yeah, yeah.
I love David Goggins.
Yeah, yeah, he is. So if you don't know him, you gotta look at him. You gotta research him, read his books. You'll get motivated. And the guy, he basically gets in front of the mirror and says, "You're a piece of shit. You're this, that. You got to do better." Da da da. And he talks to himself, and he's the one that pushes himself. And he's like, "I have to callous my mind. You
Yeah.
could callous your body, but callous your mind. That's where you need to win. You need to beat your mind, because you have the good. You have, like they say, the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other, or whatever. You know, I think that everybody has that person talking to you saying, don't worry, sleep in. You don't need that. You don't need to go to work right now. So that's what I've been trying to work on since 2019, working on myself, on my mind, how the brain works, how the universe works, like you were
Right.
talking about the universe, and all of this, it all connected, and we have to connect those dots and see where we're
See,
at around there.
see how difficult. Let me rephrase this, because a lot of us as athletes, we go into this mental part. Some of us, even if some of us leave on our own terms. I was able to leave on my own terms. Uh, I don't look back. I don't have probably any awards from that era. I was able to pivot. It's always been about the pivot for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was always able to think bodybuilding and being an athlete is what I love to do, but it's not me. It's not what makes me. I'm bigger than this. You now have to make that decision with your life. You played against the best, even though you didn't get to the majors. You still had opportunities. You had to leave on a different circumstances. The mindset wasn't always there, like you said. Was there ever any emotional sickness that came with that you had to overcome as well? Because this is something you've been doing since you've been 8 years old. Let's get real. You probably aren't, you probably don't have the mindset to pivot at this particular point. So did any emotional reset had to happen to you? And if so, how did that take place? How did you convince yourself that, you know what, I might need to go back and get this right a little bit first before I can even pivot?
You know, when I got out of baseball, I didn't I always said, oh, I'm going to go back, but I never did.
Mm,
But I was always thinking, you know, where could I play? You know, how could I play? But, you know, life, you know, ran its course. But I was working at a company I was basically a stock boy, and I got my license to do life insurance and health insurance. And I got that license and I started trying to do sales and whatnot. And, you know, I had no idea what I was doing. And, you know, pivoting, wasn't, I wasn't like thinking I'm not playing anymore. I had that in the back of my head, but I ran into a lot of success. Once I got that license, I also got my mortgage license. And the success that I was having on the baseball field, I started having in the sales department. So my
mm,
mortgage company, or when I started, I was, you know, I became the top prospect in that company, and I was just selling, and I was closing deals left and right, and that got me. It felt like if I was playing baseball again. You know, it
okay.
felt like I'm winning. So it didn't. It helped me in the transition. So it really helped me get to where, um, not even thinking about that mindset, because I went from baseball to then hitting another home run with the business. But when
Mm,
what happened was 2008 hits, 2009 I could only get to 2009, and then I have to close down my company, which, you know, I was making, oh man, I was killing it. I was, you know, I made $1 million in that time, you know,
mm,
in 1 year. Then from there to losing it all, then you're like, okay, now that's where the mindset, and that's where all this starts coming back and saying, I
yeah,
need to refocus, and I need to become a better version of myself. But what do I do? I
right.
don't know what else to do. There's no mortgages. I can't do it. Uh, it's a dead business for several years. So I start training myself, and I don't have money at that time. So I start going on YouTube, and I learn how to build websites. I also learn how to do graphic design, and I'm able to open up what is my t-shirt company, Stairs Group. And I started with my wife. We opened this up, and we became really successful after several years of learning all these new skills. So I had to reinvent myself, and that challenge is where I think, you know, where I really started thinking I need to fix myself up here,
Mm,
because there's a lot of bad, I guess, bad habits that you create once you're out of that sport, like yourself. Like maybe you started eating cake now, and you're like, damn, I'm
oh,
getting fat, you know.
you trying to get me to be open, huh?
So,
You're
but
right.
yeah,
You're
but am
right.
I right? Am I right?
Favorite. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
I
there
like a
you go.
burger
Well,
patty.
look at there. There you go. I mean, you see, those are things you couldn't do before, and now you start
Yeah,
doing them, and then you think it's okay, and then you don't have the discipline that you had before. You're thinking, man, I'm getting soft, you know, and it's just you don't have the competition with you anymore, you know. So
right, right.
I think that's what happens, you know, with us. So I need to be challenged. I need to be playing a sport, and you know, and that's what keeps me, you know, going. But
But T,
you know,
let me ask you something real quick, and I think people need to hear this and not just listen. Listen to what he's saying. He lost $1 million. That's a lot of money. He built the company. He still wasn't really able to pivot, but he took resources, and the resources was a YouTube. A YouTube. That's crazy. He took a YouTube to learn how to do something different. But this is the key factor here, which I tell people, and I even told Marion this. To invest in yourself takes time. I'm gonna use your word right here, and I tell people to be great, you have to have consistency. You show consistency, and you're the first person that I looked at their bio and I saw that word, and it made me smile, because people don't realize to be great, you got to be consistently good at what you're doing. You took this YouTube and created something, but you said it took several years. So that means you knew the art and you knew the meaning behind the word consistency. I like that. My hats off to you. How difficult was it for you to do that? Were there moments that you're human? Let's be real. There had to be times where you was, and you got a wife. And kids. I'm pretty sure there was times you was like, is this really worth it? But what made you stay on the course? What made the word consistency that you've been doing since the moment that you was 8 years old stay on this course right here?
You know, what happened was you start getting these bad habits, right? And you start thinking, I need to fix myself, right? So you start trying to do self, development, and reading books and doing all these things that you need to do. But how do you stay consistent? Is the three, and we'll go over the three things that I use, is being honest, being self-honest, look at yourself in the mirror, making sure that you are doing what it is that you're saying you're doing. And if you're falling short, you're the only person that knows that. So if you look at yourself in the mirror, did you work as hard as you could have? Yes or no? No? Okay, well, you need to get on track. And then the other thing is consistency. Can you stay consistent doing whatever it is and making sure that you continually work on yourself and continually get better? Even, let's use the 1%. You always have that 1% to get better every single day. Just make yourself better. And then the last thing would be having somebody that's going to put you accountable for what you're doing. So an accountability partner is what you really need. And for me, as my wife, she comes and she'll tell me straight up, you're not working hard enough. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. And she says it and tells me, don't get mad at me. I'm doing it because I love you. I want you, and I know you could do way better. And then that just puts, something in my brain. And I'm like, all right, we got to go. We got to go. And, we have the kids, we have everything. So you're trying to, stay consistent, because if you don't, then you're going to leave something behind, and you don't want to have regrets at the end of the day. So don't have regrets. Just continue on that self-discipline, on the three, I guess, key points that I tell you: honesty, consistency, and accountability partner. That's what's helped me become consistent, is making sure that you see it every single day. Not get if you don't, it's like taking score. If you're not keeping score, how do you know how good you're doing? You're thinking, oh yeah, no, today I did great, and then 5 days pass, and then you're great one more day. You're, oh my God, I'm doing so great. But then you look at yourself, you're like, dude, I was great 2 days out of the month. What was I doing? So that's what I tell you. And it happens to all of us. I am human. I get down on myself. You try to pick yourself up and try to think. I try not to think negative. If there's negative people around me, I say goodbye. I'm going the other way. You're going to talk. If you talk bad about somebody, I'm leaving the room. I don't want any of that negativity coming to me. So I'm a great believer of, you are who you hang around with, and, flocks of a feather, stick together. So be careful what you put in your mind, even though you're not, if it's in the subconscious, you might be picking it up and you don't even know that you're picking it up. So, be wary.
One thing I can say about you, T, this is my second time having the being blessed to be around you and listen to you. You always are full of energy. I even when you was doing the Jessica Jabins Talk podcast, I sat there and listened, and I was like, this dude reminds me a lot of me. You know what I mean? Even if you had a bad moment in your life, you don't even know you had it, because you come with such like a firecracker with so much information and knowledge. And I like the way that you can take something that happened to you and really use it to fuel. And I love that about you. I think that's really, really, really good. You have children now. How do they look at, how do you bring that to them? Because you're a great athlete, great husband, great father. What kind of messages do you send to your children, and what kind of messages do you send to the youth of the day?
So what do? I wake up in the morning. I make sure that I'm on time. I make sure those kids see the example that you're leading. Because what you do, even though you think you don't do anything wrong, or let's say I drank orange juice and it's high on sugar, and my wife's telling my kid, hey, don't drink that because it's bad. Make sure you lead by example. So what my whole thing is, whatever I do, I remember I got these kids looking at me. Even though I think they might not be seeing what's going on, I want to make sure that they know that the dad's a hard worker. He's there on time. If there's something that needs to be done, it gets done. And that's how I try to lead. And what I love my kids to play a sport, baseball. Yes. Do I push it on them? I don't. I think they're too little for that at the moment. We have one of our son is in jujitsu and soccer, but we don't push them. We just, do whatever you want, be a kid. And my example to them is, again, if you're going to start something, finish it. So if you're going to start jujitsu, you can't quit halfway through it. You got to, finish the process, even though he loves jujitsu. But, make sure that all along the way, you're an example for your kids. And, even, I sometimes I might snap on my wife and I'm thinking, I shouldn't do that, but life is life, but you try to minimize those little things because they're listening to every single thing that you do. And even if my wife and I are just having a conversation and maybe we speak a little louder to each other, my son will tell her, "Mommy, stop fighting." When I know we're not fighting, we're talking. So even that, a small conversation, they're thinking, "Oh man, there's a problem." We don't want to. We don't want the kids to even see that. So that's the biggest thing I tell you is that lead by example. I got taught that when I was in baseball. I was a quiet kid when I'm playing, and I would just do what I had to do. And I remember the coach would tell me, "Hey, you're a shortstop. You need to be more vocal. You have to take control of the game. You got to call how many outs are there? Scream it out. You got to be in the game." So I kind of started bringing that into my real life. So I think that's helped me a lot. And I think I'm sure to give somebody the motivation of just sticking with what you're doing and don't give up on yourself. That when you think you're at the end of the rope is when God says, boom, here it is. And you're like, oh my God, I was at the bottom of the barrel. I thought nothing could be, I wasn't going to get to the next level, and God gives it to you. So I think don't give up. Don't give up. Like I guess Dick Vitale used to say, when he had his cancer, don't give up, don't ever give up. And I always think that to myself, don't give up.
That's a great way of looking at life. Before we wrap up, did you have any questions for our Mr. Baseball himself, T. Arez?
I don't have any questions, but I admire everything that you've said. I agree with what you say. Consistency is key. And most importantly, that the kids are watching. I am a single mother of 4 daughters. I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to stay on your toes. If not, they will keep me on my toes. But if you are disciplined and you are consistent, the kids are watching. They're watching, they're hearing, they're watching everything you do. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you mentioning that and just bringing that up because people I think aren't aware that kids are resilient, but kids also know exactly what's going on.
That sounds like a
hmm
winner.
hmm
T,
Yeah.
before we wrap up, how can the viewers reach out to you and support you and know more about your business?
So the Instagram, it's either you can look up T Arez or Moneyman T Arez. Facebook T Arez. Those are the two main places, and you could go into moneymantarez.com for any financial needs for any lending that you might need. Also, I have the t-shirt company, stairsgroup.com. If you need any merch, hats, we could do it all. So that's where you could reach me.
Sounds like a winner. Make sure you guys follow, subscribe, like, and
Okay.
make sure you also follow the new podcast called
Change the Narrative with Marian Rivera here right on the I Am Beast Network.
Ladies and Gentlemen. This
Can
has
I
been
tell you?
another.
Can I
Go
tell you
ahead.
one
Go
more
ahead.
thing before you quit? So, the person you have next to Marilyn, she is, just for her having 4 kids, single mother, you got to say that she is a rock star and she's going to kill it on whatever show, because any woman that is on
Thank
their
you.
own with 4 kids, I'll tell you, I have 3 of them, and it is impossible with 2 people. One person taking care of those 4 kids, you are a bad, I don't want to say a bad word, but you're a
You
rock
can
star.
say it. You can say it. You're good.
So
More street cred. It's okay. You can say it.
you're a badass. No,
Guys,
but for real, that's
yeah.
awesome. I can't wait to see your show. Let me know, and I'll for sure follow you and start following all your information. So that's what I wanted
Thank
to leave
you.
with you. And sorry, I interrupted you on your
Oh, no, no, you're
ending
fine. You're
there.
fine. You're fine. And you heard it too. I believe, a mother, single mother of 4, you're taking your own money and you're investing in your own self. That's how it starts. Stay consistent. I mean, T just said it. Consistency. Even when you feel like you can't do it, look in that mirror and tell yourself, you know what? I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to do what? Change.
Change the narrative.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast, say it with me, Crayton Show.
Show.